adherence to compassion as the highest moral virtue.
And it's also, whenever you have an ideology, whenever you have these rigid, established forms of communication or methods of thinking, you box people in. You box people in and you control them. And you get them to stick inside that ideology. And in doing so, you suppress people. It's so ironic that the people that are against suppressing are actually suppressing people through enforcing these ideologies and suppressing the marketplace of free ideas. You're not allowed to have free ideas. You're not allowed to debate these things. I mean, there was that really famous instance at the University of Toronto where this one guy, I don't even remember what
Warren
his book.
Farrell.
Yes. What was his book about?
Why Men Make More.
Yeah, Why Men Make More.
Yeah, it was a multivariate analysis of the income disparity between men and women. He used to be a feminist activist. He decided to go look into the claim that women were making. I think at the time it was 70 cents for every dollar that men were making. He thought, well, I have daughters. I better go check this out and see, do a little bit of in-depth investigating. And what he found out was that there were many reasons for the disparity, and perhaps one of them was unfair discrimination, but there were another dozen, and they seemed to account for more of the disparity than the discrimination. I mean, just the fact that men take the more dangerous jobs is a huge contributor to that, and it's not trivial. You should get paid more if you're putting your limbs on the line. I mean, I grew up in northern Alberta where a lot of young men dropped out of school and went and worked on the oil rigs. It's like, you go try that. Well, maybe you could do it. But, the guys would lose their fingers, they'd lose their toes, it was 40 bloody below up there, and they'd be wrestling pipe in the middle of the bush.
I have a friend who does it. I have a friend who does that in northern Alberta.
Right.
It's horrific.
It is. It's tough work, man. And you're out in the bush for 2 weeks.
Yeah, when you go outside, there's temperatures where you literally can't be outside of your truck for more than 30 minutes.
Right.
You have to jump back in the truck, and you're almost
dying. That was called life where I grew up. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, those are very difficult jobs, and they're very high paying because people die.
Yeah, they're hard work.
And there's not a lot of women taking those jobs.
No, and a good thing, too.
So this guy, I'm sorry, what is his name again?
Warren Farrell.
Warren Farrell, who wrote this book, was giving a speech about this book, and the response was so unbelievably violent and crazy and aggressive and also ignorant to what he was saying, ignorant and not wanting to debate the facts, but wanting to call him a misogynist, wanting to call this hate speech. And
yeah, that's a favorite, man. And I got accused of that twice in the last 2 months because I don't want to use these compelled pronouns. It's
the one woman in the debate that you had with the other man that I believe is transsexual, the one woman who was trying to say what is the difference between not using those words and using racial slurs and hate speech to describe these people. Like the idea that that's a woman who's a professor who's expressing it in that way. What is the difference between not choosing to use made-up pronouns versus calling someone generally accepted racial slurs? That they're trying to frame that as the same thing.
Well, and
it's so intellectually dishonest.
Well, the racial slurs are also legal. So what's happening is the law is already such that not using one of these made-up pronouns is a crime, whereas using a racial epithet isn't.
Wow. That's crazy. That's crazy. So you could use the N-word.
No, it's legal too. Yes.
But you can't use, you have to say zir.
Yeah.
You have to say Z. Whew. Wow. This is crazy. This is really crazy. This is a bizarre moment in time where
it is bizarre.
The preposterous nature of it is so undeniable that it's forcing a lot of people. And I applaud you for doing what you're doing and risking your status with the university, risking your support of your peers, and sticking your neck out the way you've been doing with your YouTube videos. Because if you hadn't done that, there's a lot of people who wouldn't be aware of how insidious and what you were describing earlier, the creep, the slow creep towards pushing forward, waiting for you to object, waiting, and then moving forward a little bit more once you relax.
Yeah,
because that's what this is.
Yeah, yeah, and it's been bizarre. I can tell you that. I mean, my son and I counted the number of press articles that have been devoted to this. These are serious press articles. This doesn't count YouTube or radio or TV or any of those things. And I mean, the YouTube coverage has been, I would say, overwhelming. There's been 170 major press articles written about those videos in the last 2 months.
And what's the general consensus? Are they going?
Well, to begin with, in the first 2 weeks, which was the most stressful part of this for me, I would say the bulk of the press articles ran contrary to my views, and their basic theme was something like, "Why doesn't the mean professor just play nice?" It was something like that. But luckily, fortunately, I seemed to maneuver past that, and then people started to actually read the policies that I was speaking about and started to think about them. And one thing about the press is that they're actually fairly in favor of free expression, given that that's their absolute bread and butter. And so the tenor shifted, and I would say the overwhelming majority of press articles in the last, apart from the first 2 weeks, have been positive.
Well, that's great. What you've done in your YouTube videos, which I think is an amazing forum, particularly for what you're doing, is document and describe in great detail the issues with every single one of these problems with no interruption. And I think that's one of the best things about it. The fact that there's not really a whole lot of forums that will give you the chance to express yourself. I've seen some of your videos have hundreds of thousands of views. Mm-hmm. And there's not a whole lot of forums where you can do that and speak for, they're all like an hour long,
Mm-hmm.
right?
I know. I mean,
it's amazing.
It is amazing. YouTube is well, I started posting my lectures on YouTube, my classroom lectures in 2013, and in really bare bones form. They're just an iPad recording of me lecturing. I didn't edit in the slides or the images, partly because that's very time consuming. But then I watched it for about 2 years, and by September of this year, it had climbed to about 1 million views. And then I really started thinking about YouTube, because YouTube was cute cat videos, and Justin Bieber songs for a very long period of time. But it's not that anymore. And that's probably been about 2 years or maybe 2.5 years. But then I realized that YouTube is actually a revolution that's as overwhelming as the Gutenberg press revolution. Gutenberg invented the printing press. And because for the first time in human history, a lecture can have the same reach and the same longevity as a book. And it's a lot easier for people to listen. And the time lag to publication is basically zero, right? I mean, because you can do it live, I guess, as we are right now, or you can post it in a day or two after publishing it, and you have access to this insanely large audience. And the other thing that's really interesting about YouTube with regards to my, especially the more academic videos, is there's only one reason that people are watching them. One. It's not the production quality. The audio's okay, and I'm a good speaker, but it's not the production quality. The reason they're watching them is because they want to know. And that's something that's really cool about YouTube. And YouTube also seems to be quite skeptical about advanced production values. The people who are popular are often people like you who are basically sitting there talking, and everyone's listening. It's like, oh, well, people are actually talking about something, and this turns out to be interesting. It's like the rebirth of genuine journalism. So, yeah, YouTube's God only knows what YouTube is, but
I think
it's
the
a
internet
social
in general,
revolution.
I believe you're right. And I think the internet in general is this really new thing in terms of the ability to express yourself. I mean, it's only existed for 20 plus years, and in terms of human history, that's a blink of an eye. And it's only really been used, as you've described, over the last couple of years in this form. And I think it also is responsible, I think, for a great deal of the rise of the popularity of the social justice movement. I think it's a double-edged sword. I think these echo chambers and these people that do find these patterns of behavior that they subscribe to. And I think that's a part of the problem with ideologies in general, is that instead of thinking for yourself, you subscribe to a predetermined pattern of behavior and you lock in, like, this is what I'm supposed to believe, this is what I'm supposed to enforce, this is what I'm supposed to side with, and you go with that. One of the good things about the internet is that it is potentially possible to see contrary viewpoints and analyze them in the comfort of your own home and being by yourself and looking at maybe one of your videos, and maybe someone would come to your, and I'm sure a lot have come to your videos in anger, mad at you, and then listen to your points of view and listen to how clearly you've established all of these positions and what you actually feel is the problem with these positions in a very, very calm and very rational and a very well-educated point of view. I think these people, they have the potential to be at least informed. And because
I've had lots of letters, obviously, maybe, I don't know, 2,500 letters maybe to my email accounts now about this, and a very large number of them, maybe 200 letters, 150 to 200, have been from people on the radical left who've written to me and said that they can no longer speak because the authoritarian types, the PC authoritarians, have got so controlling that their once fashionable position is now being deemed unacceptable, and they're alienated and excluded. I mean, you see that happening with feminists like Germaine Greer. I mean, Germaine Greer, who's been banned from campuses, she's not very happy with the idea that being a woman is something that's been reduced to a whim, right? Because she thinks that there's more to being a woman than mere subjective choice. Well, that's no longer a tenable viewpoint on the left, and so people who hold that viewpoint, many of them are feminists, are no longer getting along with the, say, radical gender bender activist types who've got center stage at the moment. So
yeah, Christine,